Today's reading is from Isaiah chapter 58, verses 3 to 9. The people are addressing the Eternal One, saying, "Why didn't you notice how diligently we fasted before you? We humbled ourselves with pious practices, and you paid no attention." The Eternal One replies, "I have to tell you, on those fasting days, all you were really seeking was your own pleasure. Besides, you were busy defrauding people and abusing your workers. Your kind of fasting is pointless. It only leads to bitter quarrels, contentious backbiting, and vicious fighting. You are not fasting today because you want me to hear your voice. What kind of a fast do I choose? Is a true fast simply some religious exercise for making people feel miserable and woeful? Is it about how you bow your head like a bent reed, or how you dress in sackcloth, and where you sit in a bed of ashes? Is this what you call a fast? A day the Eternal One finds good and proper? No, what I want in a fast is this: to liberate those tied down and held back by injustice, to lighten the load of those heavily burdened, to free the oppressed and shatter every type of oppression. A fast for me involves sharing your food with people who have none, giving those who are homeless a space in your home, giving clothes to those who need them, and not neglecting your own family. Oh, then your light will break out like warm golden rays of a rising sun. In an instant you will be healed. Your righteousness will precede you and protect you. The glory of the Eternal will follow and defend you. And when you do call out, 'My God, where are you?' the answer will be, 'I am here. I am here.' If you remove the yoke of oppression from the downtrodden among you, stop accusing others, and do away with mean and inflammatory speech." Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God. Joe, thank you for reading that version while we followed in the other version, because that actually was wonderfully helpful in finding a way to understand that particular passage. Will you join me in a moment of prayer? Creator, lend wings to our words and our thoughts, that together we might discern your leading, your wisdom, your hope for us in this time and place. Amen. An apocryphal story to begin. Overheard in the checkout line of a supermarket. You've all been there. You know what I'm talking about. The cashier says in a wonderful, cheery little sweet voice, "Thank you for shopping with us today. Have a nice day." To which the woman in front said, "Sorry about that, but I have other plans." Now, maybe the customer did have other plans, and maybe she didn't. Maybe she just didn't appreciate being told what to do. The person who is now preaching at the school I studied at, Dr. Alice Mackenzie, made a comment about the phrase, "have a nice day." She said, "Have a nice day" is not the sort of thing Jesus ever said to anyone when leaving them or when they were leaving him. He said things like, "Go and sin no more. Rise, take up your bed and walk." Go and make disciples of all the nations. And this morning, go, be salt, be light. And of course, there were lots of people then, and probably still are, who say, sorry, but I have other plans. This week, I get to follow, with Ralph's advice and guidance, Jim Taylor, who has a wonderful online set of musings that he produces each week. And among the other things that were there and have been there this week, there was a study of the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada's recent survey of Canadians about their religious practices and experiences. It was about mainline Canadians over the age of 18 and looking at whether or not they go to church. Well, you could pretty much write the answers to that quiz. The single biggest finding is that 50% of Canadians no longer claim any religious affiliation. Any religious affiliation. Only 43% of Canadians even claim the term Christian. We in the church, Jim notes, like to think that it is the younger generation that is causing all of this decline. If at the age of 12 they took a poll of all those who were in those younger generations and said, did you go to church? Because, of course, 12 is about when parents give up trying to force their kids to come to church. That younger generation would have had about 22% in church when they were 12. And they're down to 9, 10% now, which isn't a huge shift compared to those who were born between 1925 and 1964. Does that cover most of us? Our weekly attendance has dropped from 62% to 12%. That's a huge shift. And the new normal in Canada is to not have attended any worship service in the last 12 months. Sorry, I have other plans. Seems like a lot of Canadians are saying that. And I suspect that their other plans have nothing to do with being salt or light, or making disciples, or quitting sinning. So from Jesus' invitations to ours, quite a shift. I want you to now take a moment and imagine, not that you're sitting in the pews of First United in Kelowna in 2020, but you're sitting in the seats of a synagogue and they've invited this character named Jesus to come in and speak. Take yourself back there. He talks about God on a personal level. That's okay. I can handle that. And then there's somebody in the back corner who really doesn't even belong to us, and she gets up and yells out about needing to be healed, and Jesus goes over and heals her. What's that all about? Interrupting the service? Breaking up the decorum of the study? And then the rabbi takes Jesus to task and says, you shouldn't do that on the Sabbath. And Jesus says, forget that nonsense. God's house should be a place of healing. And you begin to feel a little uncomfortable. And then he goes on to start preaching, and he reads stuff like Isaiah. Is this the kind of fast I desire? Are these the things that God wants? All those hard to listen to scriptures. All of a sudden you discover that this stuff in the synagogue that Jesus is talking about, affects the way you live. It has something to say about your economy and your politics and justice and what's going on even in your own family. And that gets very uncomfortable. And is it any wonder that at one point Jesus was almost stoned? That the first Christian martyr was stoned? That the early Christians were persecuted not by the Romans as much as by the Hebrews, who were ticked off, to put it nicely, at the way in which these folks were causing their religion to become uncomfortable. Following Jesus in those days got you in a lot of trouble. I wonder if that's what that 50% who don't go to church anymore of our age group feel about church. That the church is growing and changing and moving and shifting, and it's no longer a comfortable pew like Pierre Burton wrote about, but it's a disturbing place that calls for action and something different. We're not happy. And because we live in a land with lots of choices and not a lot of pressure to be a Christian, you could say, sorry, I'm not going to go to church today. I have other things to do. And you don't feel bad about yourself. That's the situation for most churches that I know across Canada. Jesus invites his followers to be like salt, to have such a character that they make a difference in the world around them. That they reflect the light of God into the broken and dark places of the world. That they live their lives in such a way that others can look at them and see that there is a difference. Jesus invites us to an alternative way of living. And in so doing, he's following in a long line of the prophets of the Hebrews and of the Christian church, inviting us to make a difference. I'm not going to cite all those citations and read you all the passages. We don't have that much time this morning. But I wanted to share with you a couple of thoughts that have come to me from wrestling with these passages and thinking about the invitation that Cheryl mentioned in the opening, about how as United Church people we need to start thinking about how we work together differently. When I came here to be amongst you as your minister of transition, I think there's an immediate assumption when you put somebody like me with the label like that in front of you that, well, he's going to be there for just a few days and then it'll all get back to normal. Well, I hate to tell you, transition is the new norm. Change is the reality. And things in our world are moving too quickly for our usual slow, steady examination of all the options, considering all the pitfalls and risks. This new life to which God and Jesus is calling us is a place our generation has never been before. Like Star Trek, we're going to where we don't know. You and I together, clergy and laity, we're walking into that new experience, that new dawn, and we don't know what's there. The invitation that you will read if you've seen First Word or you pick it up on the table at the back is this invitation says, if you have questions, we probably don't have the answers. This is a time of radical risk-taking to see if we can hear where God is calling us. We're embarking into the unknown. Like the early pioneers who came west across the prairies in their ox carts and who left behind a whole trail of things they thought they absolutely had to take with them and then found they couldn't carry. There may be things we will leave behind. Things we treasured, things we once thought essential. that can feel really scary. I've been doing this for almost 55 years, preaching on Sunday mornings. To think that it's going to change terrifies me to the bottom of my feet. What do you mean I have to learn new ways to do this after 55 years? But I want to tell you a secret that I'm learning. One that I think you will hear as good news. As we walk into this future, as we move forward with fear and trembling and uncertainty and doubt and questions, God is already there waiting for us. God's already on the other side of everything that terrifies us and everything that hasn't yet been revealed, because that's who God is. And a second part of that promise and that awareness is that walking with us, holding our hands, is the same Jesus Christ who was there in the beginning, calling us to fellowship and community. The Creed says we are not alone, and we are not alone. We're part of a great company of Christian folk who are seeking to discover new ways to celebrate God's presence in our world. We will stumble and fall. But there will be brothers and sisters to pick us up. We will get it wrong, but God's grace and forgiveness will surround us. We're walking with Jesus. We're singing our trust in the unknown. In a minute, we're going to sing a hymn. And I want to quote some of the poetry, because I know that for most of us, when we're singing, we don't pay attention to the poetry and the tune. We try to get it all right, and we skip some pieces. So here we go. We are learners, we are teachers, we are pilgrims on the way. We are seekers, we are givers. We're vessels made of clay. We don't know the way. We wander into this new future on strange pathways. We'll stumble and fall. We'll make mistakes. There will be heartaches and uncertainty. But we are not alone. We live and move into God's world. And we know that we belong now and forever to God. The future lies before us. The transitions are upon us. The uncertainty surrounds us. And the grace and love and hope and peace of God sustains us. May it be so. Amen. Now we're going to sing what I had you, or what I read to you. I can make my screen come up in the right direction, and yours can come up too. A fire is meant for burning, in Voices United at 578 and on the screen.